Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes for the week of July the 22nd, 2024. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. You can find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/The Minutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. On this episode, we'll have a rundown of what happened at this week's City Council meeting and an interview with Darrik Smith, the city's Housing Accelerator Coordinator, about some programs and changes to the Community Improvement Plan, which will encourage more housing units to be built in the city. That's in just a couple of minutes. But first, though, Council approved a new parking pass for people who live in the downtown cores. People who live in the North and South Core can buy passes for the courthouse or Crooks parking lots, along with the parkades, at a 25% discount. The new pass comes after Council asked administration to consult with people who live in the core areas after a deputation was made to Council with concerns about parking in the cores. Earlier this year, the hours of paid parking were expanded from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. at metered lots and at on-street parking. The report says changes are also being made to enhance security at the parkades, which includes lighting upgrades, additional cleaning and security, adding cameras to the parkades, and emergency call buttons. The report also includes the creation of temporary construction exemptions for parking. This would allow an area that typically has paid parking to have free 2-hour parking when major projects are underway. The goal is to encourage customers to access businesses in construction zones. Currently, the North Core is undergoing major construction work on Red River Road. City Council approved a number of funding programs and changes to the Community Improvement Plan on Monday night. The goal is to encourage more housing to be built. The programs include building permit fee rebates, grants to build additional units and homes, and grants to build multi-residential buildings. There are also incentives to build in downtown areas and encourage housing infill across Thunder Bay. The programs are part of the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund. The city was awarded just over $20 million, which is designed to help spur development in Thunder Bay and across Canada. The goal is to build about 1,700 new units in Thunder Bay by 2027. The Mayor's Task Force on Building More Homes gave its approval to the Housing Accelerator Fund programs prior to a decision at Council. We'll talk more about the grants and programs when Darrik Smith, the Housing Accelerator Coordinator, joins me in just a couple of minutes. A plan to electrify Thunder Bay Transit and much of the city's fleet vehicles was endorsed by Council on Monday night. The Transit and Municipal Fleet Zero Emissions Transmission Plan was initially brought to Council in May as a first report. On Monday, Council had the opportunity to ask questions of the plan. Electrifying the transit fleet will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 90%, or about 60,000 tons per year. The transition to battery-powered buses would be gradual, with an evaluation taking place in 3 to 5 years. The first phase of the plan will run from 2025 until 2029 and includes replacing 9 buses and installing 10 chargers, expanding the transit garage, and investigating using en route charging. The plan has a total of 4 phases and would take until 2040 to complete. A long debate on Monday night took place as Council heard a deputation from the head of the Thunder Bay Public Library. Richard Todman spoke to Council about the library's capital plan, which included opening a central library branch at Intercity Mall. The area had been rezoned to accommodate a library, but that decision did not force the city or the library to follow through with its plans. As part of the capital plan, the County Fair and Brodie Street branches could have been closed. City administration, in a report to Council, said it would rather see the library maintain its current branches at County Fair Mall, as well as in the 2 downtown cores in Westford area. Administration recommended against the plan, based on its financial impact, noting concerns over the long-term sustainability of undertaking major renovations in a leased space and the closure of the County Park and Brodie libraries. There would also be a potential loss of tax revenue from the space where the library would be located. Council voted to maintain the status quo when it comes to libraries and not approve the creation of a new central branch at Intercity Mall. The decision made on Monday does have an impact on future moves the library can make. For example, the library can't sign a lease on a new space without Council approving it. At this point, the library will have to maintain status quo operations and would have to come back to City Council to make any changes. The Brodie Library building is a registered heritage property, and there are restrictions on redeveloping the area. Selling the building would lead to a lack of control over the building's maintenance and preservation. As well, administration says keeping a library in downtown Fort William adds to the neighborhood, making it a more livable area. City administration recommends the library make upgrades to its existing owned branches. The Thunder Bay Public Library is an independent body. However, council does approve funding for the library. And finally, City Council approved some zoning amendments on Monday night. 3 properties on Government Road had the holding symbol removed from those properties. The removal allows development to happen on the lands, which are all part of the rural zone. Building and development can now take place in accordance with the requirements of the rural area. Council also approved the severance of a lot on Mahogany Way. The severance will create a new lot on Maple Ward Road. Administration was in favor of all of these zoning amendments. And that's a wrap as to what happened at Council this week. For more information on anything that happens at Council, please visit our website, thunderbay.ca/council. Housing is at the forefront of many decisions in Thunder Bay. It's all about getting developers and also just regular homeowners to put in a basement apartment or backyard home to increase the amount of housing in our city. To encourage people to do that, the city will introduce a number of incentives. It's all part of funding received from the federal government's Housing Accelerator Fund. This week at City Council, there were a number of programs and incentives introduced to try and get people to build in Thunder Bay. Darrik Smith is the city's Housing Accelerator Coordinator, and he can talk all about what happened on Monday night. Darrik, thanks for joining me here in the Minute Studio today.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, great that you could make it in on a nice summer day, right?
Yeah, beautiful summer day, for sure. Yeah, got to cherish it.
In this nice windowless room that we're in. Too, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, why is there such a focus on getting more housing units built in Thunder Bay?
Well, we do have a housing shortage, so we are in deficit in terms of the total amount of housing that we have available to people in Thunder Bay. So you can think about this as kind of the classic supply and demand economic situation, right? So anybody that may have experience in looking for a home, these days may have noticed that prices are high, and that's kind of a result of like what's available relative to the amount of people that have it versus want it, right? So it's another good way that we can start pushing for more homes for more families. And
we have this federal funding too, so I guess that's a pretty good incentive as well.
Yeah, this is a once in a generation opportunity. You'll hear that pretty often in the media with the team, and it's true. Like what we're being asked to do is extraordinary, and this opportunity is extraordinary to build Thunder Bay, and that's from the big developers all the way down to just a homeowner who's looking to add an apartment into their house.
So one thing that was done on Monday night was some changes to the community improvement plan. So what exactly is a community improvement plan to start off?
Yeah, community improvement plan, CIP is kind of what you might hear kind of in writing or in the media. Community improvement plan is kind of the way that municipalities are able to distribute money. So if you want to think about the Housing Accelerator Fund as like a bank account, the CIP, the Community Improvement Plan, is kind of like the teller, like the ATM that allows you to withdraw that money and distribute it to do community improvement projects. So that's why it was such an important thing, and it's hard to overstate the importance of the Community Improvement Plan, because without the ability to distribute grant money, it'd be pretty difficult to reach any of our targets and accomplish our milestones, right? So it's the way that we have to fund these projects.
So we had a community improvement plan already. We had one out there, but I guess it was pretty specific from what I understand. So I guess what was happening then and what's going to happen now?
Yeah. So as of last night, Council voted to adopt the community improvement plan, so that has to go through the other ratification processes and appealing periods, of course. But we had the strategic core areas community improvement plan, and that one dealt with very specific areas in the city. So the strategic cores, there's 3 of them. There's the North Core, there's the South Core, and then there's West Fort. So you can kind of think about it in your mind as the waterfront BAA kind of area, like Bay Algoma-ish. South Core would be like that Victoriaville kind of area, and then West Fort would be kind of more in that village, right?
Yep.
And that's a legacy community improvement plan. So what we ended up doing with that one was we had added a legacy grant that was previously unfunded, the construction assistance grant. And we tweaked it up a little bit so it was half funded. So Housing Accelerator Fund is half.
That's the federal money.
That's the federal money, yeah. So if I say half, then just know that that's what I'm referring to, the Housing Accelerator Fund. So we tweaked it up a little bit. So we're now using that specifically to fund residential units within those 3 specific core areas.
So what you've been able to do is say, okay, we were just going to have these 3 core areas that are going to have funding, and now we're going to have some housing funding that goes into it as well.
Yeah, so the original grants, there was like a building and planning fee grant, there was a second story conversion grant, a main floor conversion grant, and a facade grant originally. So those 4 grants are still there. And what we did was we took one that was dormant, that wasn't activated, and we activated it, and then we added it onto that package, that family of grants within the strategic cores. So that one's the one that's going to be funding the actual homes that are going to be built in those areas.
And is it still just for the cores, or is it for a bigger area as well now?
So the strategic core areas is still the strategic core areas. That's different than the housing community improvement plan, which was what went to council last night. So that one has a bigger, they're called community improvement project areas, or CIPA. So the CIPA, the project areas for the strategic cores, are those 3 areas, that North Core, South Core, and West Fort. Whereas the housing community improvement plan, what we did was we took the urban intensification zone from the net zero strategy, and we added on some of the existing subdivisions. So Sherwood Heights, Sherwood Estates, Gemstone Estates, and Parkdale. So the goal with that one was we really want to focus on building residential density where we already have infrastructure in place. So our roads, our sidewalks, our water, sewer, storm. So we can take more advantage of what the taxpayers of the city of Thunder Bay have already bought and paid for to install and maintain.
And for this housing plan, is it just for those areas, or is it for the whole city, or is it just for those neighborhoods that you mentioned there?
So if you look at the map, if you can kind of envision like a map of the city of Thunder Bay, it's essentially the urban blob of the city of Thunder Bay, plus a couple of like add-ons. Oh, and the East End as well is okay. Added on there as well. So already pre-serviced stuff. So all of the city infrastructure is already existing there. So wherever there's non-fully urban service lots, so that again is your water, your sewer, if storm is available there as well, then we're trying to really focus on building up on the infrastructure that we already have. And that's really good because it directly supports our asset management plan. On May the 6th, the project manager Coombs did a presentation where they had noted in their presentation for phase 2 of the asset management plan that we presently have a $31.9 million per year asset deficit, yes. Right? So the best thing that we can do right now financially is really focus on building up on what we already have instead of putting more road, putting more sidewalk, putting more water, more sewer, because that stuff's really expensive to maintain over its asset life cycle. Whereas the stuff that we already have, it's kind of a many hands make light work situation there. So
for this housing community improvement plan, what flows through that then, I guess? Because that's what you said. This is the teller. The CIP is the teller.
The teller, yeah. So workshop in that analogy a little bit for sure. But what flows through that? So there's 4 grants that we had recommended be activated last night. So they can kind of be thought about as 2 really main grants. So if you're looking at that community improvement plan, you're going to want to primarily do one of 2 things. You're going to want to build a multi-unit residential building. So that's your 2, 3, 4 plus plex apartment buildings, basically,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you're going to want to do an additional dwelling unit, or an ADU, as they're called, which comes in kind of like 3 flavors, which is you can build one in your building. That'll be like an apartment that you build in, basement apartment kind of a thing. Yeah. You can build it on a building, so like an addition, or you can build it around that building in the form of like a backyard home, if you kind of wanted to think about it that way, like in, on, or around. We anticipate that that's probably going to be where we get the most uptake, and that's just for like the home and property owner. And we also anticipate that that's probably going to be the one that has the biggest impact on the affordability of housing in Thunder Bay, just globally in general.
And you kind of said it there, that these aren't grants that you have to be a professional contractor to apply for, or you have to be a developer. This is for anyone.
Yeah, we're really trying hard to increase the variety of not just housing options that are available, but also people that have access to support increase that density, right? So we have these two main grants. The other two are more supportive in nature, is kind of our intent with that. So we have the similar to the strategic cores, we have a planning and building permit fee rebate, and then we have a servicing grant as well that will directly support the additional dwelling units. So that would be a really good one for, say you want to do another unit in your home, but you need to upgrade servicing. So you need bigger water, more water, like sewer line. Your sanitary sewer needs to be upgraded. So we're trying to remove as many barriers as possible to as many people as possible to build as many projects as possible.
So these grants that we have that were introduced and approved by council last night, these aren't just for developers and people who are professional contractors. These are for regular homeowners as well.
Yeah. The goal of the housing community improvement plan and the strategic core areas community improvement plan, as they're funded by the Housing Accelerator Fund, is to build Thunder Bay, and that means getting as many hands involved as possible. So we want to try and diversify not just the types of things that are being built. There's only so many different types of building that you can build, but also diversify the people that are building them and make that money available and that opportunity available to as many people as possible. So the additional dwelling units is a really good example of that. We anticipate actually the most units for the housing CIP to come from there. So we anticipate that a lot of people are going to be wanting to build an apartment or a suite in their home, or do a backyard home perhaps. Which would be supported directly by the other two more supportive grants, that building permit and planning application fees grant and the servicing grant. So similarly to what the strategic core areas is, if you need a planning application to do your project, or you have a building permit fee, all building permits cost money. So we have up to $10,000 available for those. And the servicing is just, say you needed to do modifications or upgrades to your water or your sanitary sewer lines in order to support that additional dwelling unit in your home. Then we're trying to reduce as many barriers as possible to actually build Thunder Bay for as many people as possible that fall within that project area.
If people are interested, when are these going to be available for people to apply for, and I guess get some cash if they're making some building as well?
Yeah, we're going to take a different approach for the multi-unit residential grant versus the additional dwelling unit grant. Both of them will be available starting in September, is what our goal is. The multi-unit residential grant is going to have an application intake window and an associated scoring criteria that we're going to use to kind of prioritize the different projects that come through there. So that will be made available on our website prior to that start date, the opening date of the application window. And then the additional dwelling units, our plan is to just have those open kind of first come, first serve.
So you're kind of anticipating, I guess, that there might be some more contractors, developers who are interested than you might be able to handle at first, at least.
That would be a good problem to have, right? That's the goal is to be busy here and to build Thunder Bay with, again, like once in a generation opportunity to make a meaningful difference in how Thunder Bay looks, feels, providing homes, making living more affordable in Thunder Bay. So we really hope to be busy.
You were at council last night. You were presenting all this. What was the reaction from council last night?
Generally supportive, I would say. There was questions around the net zero component to the new build, the multi-unit residential, and we are in a climate crisis, and we do have an approved net zero strategy that was approved by council. So what we're kind of doing on that one is, instead of it being like, it would be nice if you built with more sustainability in mind, we're kind of switching the focus around to like you build with sustainability in mind. Mm-hmm. And if you cannot do that, it's up to the applicant to describe to us why they're unable to meet that minimum. So I think it's an important part of like the direction that we're moving as a community, as a country, as a world, right? We only have one, so we need to try and take care of it. That was kind of where a lot of the questions were around, for sure.
Yeah, you're putting the onus back on the builder, and not so much saying we're going to regulate this. It's saying how are we going to do this?
Absolutely, and what we've been finding is around especially electrification. It seems to net zero seems to equal electrification in people's minds. And it's true. Like that is one way that you can do more net zero style of building for sure. But the big thing is like baseboard heating, right? But it doesn't mean baseboard heating. You know, heat pumps are an emerging technology. They're becoming more popular. My car has one. I have an electric car. You know, my car has one. So like the technology is getting really good. Haven't owned it in the wintertime yet, so we'll have to see how that goes. But there's also low or no carbon fuel sources. So you can have a furnace that's biomass, wood pellets, for example, would be another one. So it's not just these baseboard heatings, because I think we all have had the experience of living in a place that had baseboard heatings that were like inefficient, and but that's not exactly the case. So like we're kind of battling perception, right? And perception's a tough opponent to face sometimes. So yeah, the net zero was definitely questions around that one for sure, but generally supported by council, and I'm grateful for that. We worked hard on that community improvement plan.
Darrik, appreciate you coming in today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Darrik Smith is the Housing Accelerator Coordinator for the City of Thunder Bay, and he joined me here in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. That's thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for listening this week. We'll chat again in August. Make it a great day.